a question for you folks. I was reading something in my local paper yesterday. More about that in a moment. This is the question. Have any of you got any pubs that you've gone in the past, maybe in your hometown, where you've thought, oh my God, I'm not so sure I like it in here? Along the lines of, oh my God, everybody's looking at me. Or along the lines of, uh-oh, it's going to kick off in a minute. Have you got any of those pubs in your town? Have you been in any of them or not? I'll tell you why I ask. I'm in Bath last night and I've took last week's, not this week's, I'm a week behind, I always am, last week's edition of the local newspaper. That's the Warrington Guardian. You'll know what pub it's about because it'll probably be in the thumbnail. That's the picture on the front. Anyway, what they have in my paper there, the old Guardian, they have a letters page where people write in with various stories about this, that and the other. It's crap now, it used to be good, but there's a guy called Dennis Woods used to write in it every week. I knew him, I loved him. Absolutely brilliant. Used to tear the local council to shreds. He's since died. He's died a good few years ago now. It's not as good without him there. So I still look at that. But the page after it, they always have like a yesteryears or memories from the past. And in last week's edition, they're talking about a pub in Warrington, no longer with us, called the Kingsway. Now, it'd been there for years and years and years. It's been pulled down about 20 years ago now, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less, I'm not so sure. Big old building, you know, a lot of character. But I think the stock was dwindling there, and in the end, they'd made the decision to pull it down. Anyway, I'd probably only been in there 4 or 5 times in my life, and 2 or 3 of those times were for the old disco night. They had a disco on it. May have been a Tuesday night, may not have been, I'm not so sure. I'd only been in my probably early 20s at the time, say 23, 24, 25. So we're talking many, many years ago, like 40 years ago there, near enough, you know, a long time ago. Anyway, you'd walk in there and you'd always have the sense of trouble. You'd always thought something was about to kick off. Never always did, but you'd always thought it was. And it was always weird. I'm mentioning this because in the letters about it, people have wrote in about the Kingsway, and this woman writes in, oh, a fantastic pub, never saw any trouble in there, never any trouble at all. Next person, oh, what a pub, loads, always packed, no trouble in there, none, and I'm thinking, is this the same pub? Underneath that, a bloke writes, oh, the Kingsway, he said, only went in 2 or 3 times, it was one of them pubs, when you walked in, everybody fell silent, and every eye hit you, if they didn't know you. And that's what I felt. We had another one in town called the Ringer Bells in Busia, Delham. I only went there once or twice. That seemed a bit the same as well. If you were from round there, I think you were sorted. If you wasn't, you didn't really want to be in there. And they're 2 pubs that spring to mind whenever I think of pubs where, you know, violence is probably only a second or 2 away. Or potential violence. It's one of them pubs where you walk in and all eyes would hit you, or you'd be in a while and people would focus on you. You didn't know why, but they'd focus and you pretended. You never smiled at them or anything else. You never necessarily looked away because you could look too scared or too shifty. You'd look at them and pretend you weren't really staring at them and then slowly look at something else in the pub and try to get someone's attention and try to talk to someone whilst all the time looking up thinking, are they still looking at me? It was weird, but it's how it was. As I say, I went in the Kingsway 3 or 4 times, always a bit uncertain. And I only lived about a mile and a half away. Ringer Bells, I lived about 3.5 mile away. But always a bit dodgy. Went visit my mum and dad today. My mum's not been well at all. My dad's not been well for a long while, but my mum's took a turn for worse this last week or so. And I was talking, I said, did you see Guardian last week about Kingsway? I said, they said never any trouble. I said, I only went in there 3 or 4 times, you'd be frightened to death. Frightened to death, man. And I was pretty tall for England. I was 6'1" and whatever else, and reasonably handy, you know. But you'd go in there and you didn't feel reasonably handy at all. You felt like you were being watched. You felt like somebody was ready to have you at any time, whether you stepped out of line or not. And I said to my mum, I said, I'll tell you what, them 2 pubs, they were a bit that way, weren't they? I said, I don't think we had any other pubs like that in Warrington. I don't think. And then I thought, oh my God, what about the Longford? The Longford, oh my God, they pulled that one down as well, the Longford. Unbelievable. Oh, I've heard some stories about the Longford. Some rum crew used to go in there. Some rum fellas, you won't want to pick a fight in there. Story did the rounds years ago, and I think it's a true story. Years ago, do you remember when they had the old derbies? Were they derbies? Were they called derbies? I don't mean in the football. I don't mean United City. Liverpool. I don't mean that. No. The old Scotland against England. Scotland-England. Remember they'd have them at Hampden Park one year. The home internationals. Then they'd have them at Wembley. Anyway, what used to happen, I think, Warrington was a bit of a stop-off point. If you went to that there Wembley, about 190 mile away, Warrington was on the line for the M62 or M6. And then further down there, would be M6, wouldn't it? You've got old Bonnie Scotland. Well, a lot of the people that used to support Scotland weren't that bonny. Well, they were bonny, but they liked a bit of a ruckus. They'd often go to Wembley, get their arses handed back to them. Well, no, sometimes they would, but more often than not, they never. And on the way home, after lots and lots and lots of beer, probably lots of it on the coach, they were looking for a bit of a scrap. Anyway, story goes, and I believe it's a true story, they went into Longford one Saturday night it was, after the international, thinking they might kick off a bit and have a bit of a ruckus. They had a bit of a ruckus. They got chased out the pub, good style, only a coach of them. 50 blokes on the coach, all in there ready for a fight. Oh, they got banjoed, I believe, absolutely banjoed. Back on the coach, back to Bonnie Scotland, bruises and all. So yeah, that was 3 pubs. So you'd have the Longford, which you've only just thought about, the Ringer Bells, and the Kingsway, which is the one that started the story. So my question to you is, as I said earlier, have you got any pubs in your town where you go in and you think, oh, I'm not coming in here again now. Oh, good God, better keep my head down, and your head would sort of thingy into your jacket, and you keep your head down, you talk to your mates, you pretend that you never knew what was going on and folk weren't looking at you. Have you had them pubs at all? I bet you'd have. I'll bet you some of you have been in pubs like that. I bet you never went in there regular. I bet you thought, no, I'm giving that one a wide berth. I did with Kingsway, but I'm sad to see it go. Also reading something there, one of the blokes was saying in the old write-ups, I think he worked for the local brewery, he said Kingsway, he said, oh my God, in its day, the best drinking place in Warrington, they have more ale than anyone else. Now, I read what it said, and I can't remember how many he said, but I think he said Christmas one year, I think he said we took 126 barrels, each with 30 or 40 pints. I think he said 126. He said we had to do 3 trips from the brewery to fill it up. He said they drunk that much ale in there, they had a cellarman working in there full time, morning, afternoon and evening, keeping up with changing the barrels and whatever else. Oh, aye. So they drunk some alcohol in there. Oh, aye. That was then. Brother-in-law that since worked for the brewery, and he said there was one in Warrington. He said the 2 in Warrington, King and Queen, and what's the other one called? One in Sottenheath. I can't think what it's called. You don't know Sottenheath, you don't know Warrington, so I don't even know why I'm telling you. But there's 2 in Warrington now that drink more than anyone else. But in its day, they said the Kingsway was the pub. No wonder they're always battling. They're always blooded, man. Always blooded. Tell you what, them 2 or 3 times I went in for the disco, honestly, there were only 2 or 3 times. It was a shame because it was a good night, good music and whatever else. Lots of young ladies. Might surprise you this, but I had an eye for the young ladies in my day. Never had much success, but I had an eye for them. Oh, I did. But no, I never made it a regular on. So always a bit, living on the edge it was. Anyway, I'll love you and leave you. Tell me your stories. You must have some. I bet you've got loads.